Introduction to Artificial Neural Network presented by Vidyaprabha CV, Assistant Professor, Department of Computer Science and Engineering. Today we are going to see the introduction of Artificial Neural Network. In general, computing includes goal-oriented activity, study, and experimentation of algorithmic process and development of both hardware and software. In general, computing are categorized into soft computing and also as hard computing. In soft computing, the usage of approximate calculations to provide imprecise but usable solutions to complex computational problems. But in hard computing, we use traditional mathematical model to solve problems such as algorithm and mathematical model is more precise. Here, a biological neural network is a massively parallel distributed processing system and it is made of highly interconnected neural computing elements that have the ability to learn and thereby acquiring knowledge and made it available for usage. Where artificial neural network, that is ANN, is an information processing system that has certain performance characteristics in common with biological neural networks. ANN has developed as generalized of mathematical models of human cognition or neural biology. Based on that assumptions, the information processing occurs at many simple elements that is called neurons. Signals are passed between that neurons over connections takes place. Each connection link has an associated weight and each neuron applies an activation function in that. That is a nonlinear. In general, we all know that how our brain works. We discussed the brain is a massively parallel in processing system. Our brain are a huge network of processing elements and our typical brain contains a network of 10 billion neuron. The diagram represents that an individual neuron is represented by in the way of diagram. A tree-like structure, a root-like structure. Dendrite is a terminology in biological neural network. Cell body, soma is biological network and synaptic is also a biological term. Axon is also a biological term. He is comparing the biological neural network with ANN, that is artificial neural network. Dendrite is an observer of to the neuron, like it gives or gets input from one neuron to another neuron, where cell body is located around the nucleus, a fluid element, where one cell body to another cell, that is one neuron to another neuron, we need to communicate. That communicate link is done by synapses, where axon is an output of a neuron. And neuron receives input from other neuron. That inputs are combined. A neuron is connected to other neurons through about 1,000 synapses. Once input exceeds a critical level, the neuron discharges a spike like an electrical pulse that travels from the body down the axon. As early told, axon is an output, dendrite is an input, and synapse is a communication link where cell body or soma is placed around a nucleus. That is similar to our processor. And the transmission of the electrical signal from one neuron to the next is affected by neurotransmitters, where neurotransmitters are chemicals which are released from the first neuron which bind to the second neuron. The diagram represents the same. The link here is called as synapse. The strength of the signal that reaches the next neuron depends on factors such as amount of neurotransmitter which is available. Now we can look a glance on the characteristic of a biological neural network, the term as BNN. It is a massive connectivity and non-linear, and it is parallelly you can connect, robust and fault tolerance. Whereas a single way of neuron is any disturbance occurred, it take another path. Likewise, the transmission won't disturb anywhere if the communication happens continuously. Then capability to adapt the surroundings and ability to learn and generalized from the known example. And here the collective behavior is different from the individual behavior. Now, in terms of artificial neural network, the information is transferred as a series of electric impulses. So it is called spikes. The frequency and the phase of these spikes encodes the information. In biological systems, one neuron can be connected to as many as 10,000 to other neurons. Usually, a neuron receives information from other neurons in a confined area, so it is called as receptive field. Receptive field. The building blocks of neural network are the neurons. In technical system, we also refer to them as units or nodes. Basically, each neuron receives input from many other neurons, changes its internal state, that is an activation function based on the current input, and sends one output signal to other neuron, possibly including its input neuron. I mean recurrent network. It recurrents the network. How do ANN works? An artificial neuron, we are comparing with our BNN. An artificial neural network is either a hardware implementation or a computer program which helps to strive to stimulate the information processing capabilities of its biological exemplar. ANN are typically composed of a great number of interconnected artificial neurons. The artificial neurons are simplified model of their biological counterparts, where ANN is a technique of a software which works like a natural brain, that is a BNN. We are connecting with our nodes, processor and the network. And then properties of the artificial neural networks are assembly of a simple processor and the information stored in the connection without memory. Massively it is a parallel and massive connectivity. We are having a fault tolerance. That is, if one of the neuron or connections is damaged, the whole neuron network is still work quite well, where it is take avoid damaged path and takes another path. Learning and generalized ability are the properties of the neural network, and it is robust and individual dynamics different from the group dynamics, where it's all properties present in a particular network but it's available in multiple network. And finally, the ANN and the basics. The ANN incorporate the fundamental components of biological neural network. We used to say neurons and synapse in the BNN. The same neurons we imagine as a node and the same synapse we imagine as a weight, where neurons are nodes, synapse are weights. How does ANN work? This diagram represents both biological neural network and artificial neural network. Dendrites is, as we told, it is an input, and soma is an field over the nucleus, and axon is a communication link, and synapse is the output. Whereas in artificial neural network, X1, X0, X3, X4 and X0 are the nodes which are interconnected. The node transmits or doing some process with some value. That value we used to say the weight, and then as a processing element, sigma, summation of all the weights doing some process, and with the help of that process an activation function or algorithmic transformation applies there, and finally we receive an output. For example, we are looking into a new living animal, example dog. Very first time when we are looking the dog, the eyes capture the image of the dog, and exactly we internal our brain looks the colors and species, and then all the pixels it's stored in the way of and pixels, and finally we name it as a dog. Later when we met the same image, automatically from our brain it took and the image compared with the brain which already stored in neuron, and we came to the brain come to the conclusion it is an animal dog. Likewise neural network and then ANN is going. Thank you all.